On a cold Friday evening, January 12, 2007, Purdue University's Ford Dining Hall buzzed with energy. It was the first Friday of the spring semester, and students were alive with plans, laughs, and the anticipation of weekend freedom. Among them was 19-year-old freshman Wade Steffi, a scholarship student studying aviation technology. At around 7:20 p.m., Wade grabbed a tray of food, sat with friends, and soaked in the lively atmosphere. An hour later, he stood, said his goodbyes, and exited into the chilly night. But instead of heading back to his own dorm, Cary Quad West, he veered toward Owen Hall, a neighboring dorm where some of his friends lived. Wade wasn't staying there, but he knew people inside. He made his way into one of their rooms, where everyone was hanging out and drinking. He joined in, had a few drinks, and chatted until around 9:30 p.m., when the group decided to head to a nearby fraternity party. They walked about half a mile to the frat house, where the party raged on late into the night. But just before midnight, Wade realized he'd left his jacket back at Owen Hall. Wanting it back, he decided to return alone. There was a problem. Like all Purdue dorms, Owen Hall locked its doors at night. You needed a key card to get in, or someone inside had to let you in. So, during his walk back, Wade tried calling people inside the building. He made 6 phone calls. 4 were to the wrong numbers, and the other 2 weren't answered. Around 12:30 a.m., Wade arrived outside Owen Hall. He knocked on the front door, hoping someone inside would help. Eventually, a student he didn't know came to the glass. They looked Wade over and decided he was too drunk to let in. They turned around and walked away. Wade was now stuck outside in the cold, without his jacket, with no way in. He knocked a little longer, then gave up and wandered around the building, looking for another way in. On the side of Owen Hall, he spotted something, a strange door, half buried below ground level. There was no "Keep Out" sign, but it clearly wasn't meant for students. A railing surrounded the sunken doorway like a barrier. Still, Wade, possibly still buzzed from the drinks, decided this was his ticket in. He climbed over the railing, dropped into the pit in front of the door, and tried the handle. It was unlocked. He opened the door to darkness. Inside, he heard the humming of machines, loud, steady, and mechanical. Still determined to get inside Owen Hall, Wade took off one of his shoes and wedged it into the doorframe to keep it from closing behind him. Then he stepped into the pitch-black room. He felt around and immediately bumped into a large metal structure. It was flat, cold, and buzzing. It was clearly one of the machines making noise. Thinking he could navigate around it and find another door, Wade began moving along its edge. Then he vanished. 4 days later, Wade's roommate returned from a weekend trip and immediately noticed something strange. Wade's bed was still made, his things untouched. No one had seen him since Friday. Calls and texts went unanswered. The roommate alerted Wade's family, who also hadn't heard from him. By that evening, Wade was reported missing. Police tracked his phone to somewhere on campus, but the signal wasn't precise. A massive search began. Police, students, volunteers, even Purdue's equestrian club scoured the grounds. Helicopters and K-9 units joined in. But days turned into weeks, and all they found was one clue: Wade's missing shoe. It was discovered outside a locked maintenance door on the side of Owen Hall, right next to a concrete pit. Investigators searched the area but found nothing else. The case went cold. The search was eventually called off. 2 months later, on March 19th, a maintenance worker was doing laundry in the basement of Owen Hall when they heard a strange, repeated popping sound. They assumed it was a coin bouncing around inside a dryer. But as they walked between machines, the noise seemed to come from outside the laundry room. They stepped into the hallway and heard it again, louder now. It was coming from a locked maintenance door directly across from the laundry room. The worker grabbed their keys, opened the door, and stepped inside. What they found ended the mystery. That room was an electrical vault full of high-voltage equipment and massive transformers. Inside, on the floor, was Wade's body. He had been electrocuted to death. Based on the evidence, investigators reconstructed what happened. After being denied entry through the front door, Wade found the side entrance, climbed over the railing, and stepped into the dark room, propping the door with his shoe. blindly feeling his way. Through, he bumped into the transformer. In a tragic stroke of bad luck, he touched something that was live. Electricity surged through his body, killing him instantly. The loud machines had drowned out the sound of any reaction. No one heard him. And over time, his shoe fell from the doorframe. The door shut, locked, and for 2 months, no one knew he was just feet from where they had searched. The popping sound the maintenance worker heard, it was caused by the electrical current still interacting with his remains. Wade Steffi had never left Purdue's campus. He'd been there the entire time, hidden in darkness behind a door no one was meant to open. In the small, quiet college town of Valley City, North Dakota, life moved at a gentle pace. It was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked and smiled at strangers. Valley City State University, nestled near the Cheyenne River, was the heart of the town, filled with promise, dreams, and students working toward their futures. One of those students was 22-year-old Mindy Morgenstern. Blonde, athletic, and deeply spiritual, Mindy was the type of person who radiated kindness and determination. She had once been a high school basketball star, her eyes set on the WNBA. But life had other plans. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, she was forced to abandon her dream of playing professionally. Instead of breaking her, the diagnosis only made her more resilient. She pivoted, pouring her energy into sports medicine, determined to help others, especially athletes like herself. She wanted to coach, inspire, heal. Mindy lived in a cozy off-campus apartment building, nothing fancy, but close to school, and surrounded by fellow students and neighbors she trusted. One of those neighbors was Mo Gibbs, a former prison guard who worked nearby and lived just down the hall. On September 13th, 2006, Mindy was going about a normal day. That morning, she left her apartment to switch laundry. As always, she was warm and friendly, greeting neighbors on her way down the hall. She wore a tank top, sweatpants, and tennis shoes. Nothing out of the ordinary. When she returned with her full basket, Mo saw her juggling keys and clothes and offered to help. Mindy, always kind, accepted. He carried the basket to her door, smiled, and left. It was such a small moment, one of hundreds that day, but it would soon take on horrifying significance. Shortly after, Mindy received an unexpected phone call from Rodney Kusia, the father of her ex-boyfriend. They'd dated the year before, but things ended and she'd moved on. Rodney, however, had not. At first, his continued contact had seemed harmless, but the calls never stopped. They became more frequent, more intense, and on that day, he called again, asking her out to dinner. It wasn't a fatherly check-in. It was something else entirely. Mindy told him, once again, to stop calling her. It rattled her. She mentioned to a friend that something about the call felt off, but brushed it aside. There were errands to run, laundry to finish, and plans to make for the weekend. Around 12:45 p.m., Mindy stepped out again with her laundry basket in hand. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. That evening, 2 of Mindy's close friends arrived at her apartment. They had plans to hang out, maybe grab dinner or watch a movie. When she didn't answer the door or pick up her phone, they grew worried. One of them tried the knob. Strangely, it was unlocked. As soon as they stepped inside, they were hit by an overwhelming smell, pine cleaner so strong it burned their nostrils, and then they saw it. Mindy was lying just inside the door, her body limp. Blood pooled around her, a belt still wrapped around her neck, and a knife lodged in her throat. They screamed and ran from the apartment. Police arrived quickly. The first officer on scene was Sergeant Dave Swenson, a local who knew Mindy personally from campus events. Seeing her lifeless body in that apartment shook him to his core. There was no sign of forced entry, no evidence of robbery. The scene was oddly clean, as if someone had gone to great lengths to remove traces of the crime. But the overuse of Pine Sol was suspicious. It wasn't just cleaning. It was an attempt to cover something up. State investigators were brought in, including Special Agents Mark Saylor and Calvin Dupree from the North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation. They were seasoned, focused professionals, but even they felt the weight of this case. The autopsy revealed Mindy had fought for her life. There were bruises, defensive wounds, and clear signs of a struggle, but the killer had overpowered her, strangled her with the belt, and then stabbed her in the neck twice. He had even poured pine sol over her body, hoping to destroy DNA evidence. But he missed one crucial thing: her fingernails. Investigators bagged Mindy's hands immediately, hoping that if she scratched her attacker, there'd be skin or blood caught under her nails. Then the interviews began. Investigators bagged Mindy's hands immediately, hoping that if she scratched her attacker, there'd be skin or blood caught under her nails. They spoke to everyone in the building, including Mo Gibbs, the friendly neighbor who helped her with her laundry just hours before her death. He was calm, cooperative. A former jailer, Mo, was comfortable talking to cops. He said he barely knew Mindy. He offered nothing useful, but also gave investigators a weird feeling. When asked if he had smelled anything strange that day, he casually mentioned the pine-scented cleaner. That raised eyebrows. Why would a neighbor down the hall notice a chemical smell coming from inside her locked apartment? They noted the odd comment, but didn't have enough to arrest him. Then, the DNA came back. Under Mindy's fingernails, a clear match: Mo Gibbs. Police arrested him immediately. The community was stunned. Mo had lived among them, worked with law enforcement, and seemed like a model neighbor. But after the arrest, everything unraveled. 6 women came forward. All had been inmates at the county jail where Mo worked. Each said Mo had sexually assaulted them while on duty. One even said she was assaulted just hours before Mindy was murdered. Mo had a dark past. Years earlier, he'd changed his name to avoid scrutiny. And in that name, change, he'd buried a criminal record, one that painted a picture of a dangerous man hiding in plain sight. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. The DNA, the pattern of abuse, the pine sol, the neighbors' testimonies. Mo Gibbs was convicted of first-degree murder and multiple counts of rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The loss of Mindy Morgenstern was more than just a murder. It was a trauma that rippled through the Valley City community. Her death was a betrayal of trust, a reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like the guy next door who helps you carry your laundry. And yet, even in death, Mindy fought back. She left behind enough evidence to identify her killer and ensure justice was served. Her family set up scholarships in her name. Her story is now told across campuses as a cautionary tale and a call for better protections. She was strong, brave, and in her final moments she made sure her voice would be heard through the scratches she left behind and the legacy she left after. Austin Harroff grew up in one of the most affluent towns in Florida Jupiter, where the streets are lined with palm trees and nearly everything glows with sun and wealth. He came from a well-off family. His dad was a dentist. His mom was a pharmacist. They gave him a stable home, good schools, love, and support. On paper, Austin was the perfect American son. He was tall, athletic, and smart. In high school, he played football. He got good grades. He wasn't known for being a troublemaker or a bully. He was soft-spoken, polite, and he wanted to help people. He told everyone he planned to become a doctor. He even got into Florida State University's competitive pre-med program. He was, by all accounts, the type of kid people expected big things from. But during his first year of college, things began to change. Slowly at first. He started journaling, writing about how isolated he felt, how people didn't really accept him, how he wished he were more outgoing. He also started experimenting with drugs weed at first, but then it escalated. Vyvanse, MDMA, mushrooms, LSD, synthetic drugs. Each time he'd sink a little deeper into himself. When he wasn't high, he was anxious, confused, and increasingly paranoid. He started doing strange searches online. How do you know if you're crazy? Can sleep deprivation cause hallucinations? Am I possessed? The thoughts in his head weren't just sad or anxious anymore. They were obsessive, terrifying, and they wouldn't stop. By the summer of 2016, he had returned home to stay with his family. His behavior had changed drastically. He stopped eating meat. He said it was to cleanse his body. He believed the house was filled with demons. He moved his bed into the garage so he could guard the family from them. Every couple of hours, all night long, he would walk down the hallway, knock on his parents' and sisters' doors, and say he was making sure they were still safe. He didn't say it as a joke. He was dead serious. One day he turned to his sister and told her, "I'm half dog, half man, and I'm immortal." His family didn't know what to do with that. On August 15, 2016, Austin planned to meet his dad and his dad's girlfriend at a restaurant called Duffy's Sports Grill for dinner. Before that, he hung out with some friends at the beach. But when he showed up, he was wearing thick sweatpants, a football jersey, 2 watches, and sunglasses completely overdressed for the scorching heat. When his friends teased him, he snapped. He told one of them, "Say I'm crazy again and I'll kill you." That shut everyone up. They had never heard him talk like that. Later, they all made their way to Duffy's. They sat at a booth. Austin was quiet at first. Then, without saying a word, he stood up and walked out of the restaurant. His mom picked him up and brought him back home. But 30 minutes later, he returned to Duffy's like nothing had happened. He sat down again. His dad looked at him and said, "What is going on with you?" Austin didn't answer. Instead, he calmly pushed his father's face down into the booth cushion, stood up, and walked out again. That was the last time his family saw him as the boy they knew. Somewhere in the darkness that followed, Austin snapped completely. He wandered into a quiet neighborhood about 4 miles from the restaurant, toward a house where a retired couple, John Stevens and Michelle Mishkan, were enjoying a typical Florida evening. They were in their garage, as they often were, sipping drinks with the door open to the breeze. They had no idea that Austin Harroff was walking toward them in the middle of what would become one of the most gruesome crimes in Florida history. Around 9:30 p.m., their neighbor, Jeff Fisher, heard something from across the street, a scream. Then another. He looked outside and saw a tall young man near Michelle's car. Michelle was standing in her garage, frozen. Jeff rushed over. As he got closer, he saw the man Austin attack Michelle, throwing her to the ground. Jeff tried to intervene, but Austin turned on him and slashed him with a knife, cutting his face, chest, and back. Bleeding heavily, Jeff staggered home and called 911. Meanwhile, John Stevens had just come back from walking the dog. He saw his wife being attacked in their own garage. He rushed to save her, but Austin now had a clear, singular focus. Destroy. He turned on John and murdered him too. When police arrived a few minutes later, what they found was beyond disturbing. Austin was crouched on top of John Stevens' body, growling like an animal, his teeth tearing into John's face. He was actually biting pieces off. Officers screamed at him to stop. He didn't even look up. They tased him. No response. They kicked him. Nothing. They released a police dog on him, and even as the dog latched onto him and bit down, Austin didn't stop. He kept chewing, kept growling, kept grunting like he wasn't a person at all. Eventually, they managed to pull him off, handcuff him, and drag him away. He was naked, soaked in blood, and in a state of total psychosis. He was rushed to the hospital, where he slipped into a coma for several days. The world quickly found out what had happened. A straight-A, pre-med college student had just committed a brutal double murder, and apparently tried to eat one of his victims. When he woke up, the investigation began. Toxicology reports found no evidence of bath salts, flakka, or synthetic stimulants drugs that had been linked to past zombie-like attacks in Florida. The usual explanations didn't fit. Austin himself had no clear explanation either. He told police he didn't remember the attack, but said he felt like something had come over him. He claimed he believed the couple were demons. In a jailhouse interview with Dr. Phil, he cried and said, "I'm so sorry." He said he didn't know why he did it and that he didn't want to live anymore. A forensic psychologist diagnosed him with clinical lycanthropy, a rare delusional belief where the sufferer thinks they're turning into an animal. Austin had shown signs of this before. He had believed he was a dog, a horse, that he was immortal, that demons were after him. The psychiatrist concluded that Austin had been in the middle of a full psychotic break at the time of the attack. He was legally insane. In 2022, Austin Harroff entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. The court accepted it. He was committed to a secure mental institution potentially for the rest of his life. The families of John Stevens and Michelle Mishkan were horrified. They felt justice had not been served. They had lost 2 loving, generous people in the most violent, nightmarish way imaginable, and the man who had done it wouldn't spend a day in prison. But the legal system had spoken. Austin's case became national news, not just because of the gore, but because it challenged everything people thought they understood about mental illness. How could someone with no criminal record, no history of violence, and every opportunity in life commit such an act? Was he a cold-blooded killer, or a mentally ill young man who fell through every crack? What we do know is this. 2 innocent people were murdered in their own garage, their peaceful retirement ended by something that no one could have predicted. And a young man with everything going for him lost his mind, and with it, any hope of the future he had once imagined.